Started here. This is a bit of the pre-show, just as we wait for people to jump into the YouTube channel or on the Facebook page. Today, I hope to answer the question of, does anybody actually use WordPress? I know there's lots of, basically everybody here uses WordPress, but do you know actual sites, real sites, not our own sites that use WordPress? So not only are we going to look at why people would use WordPress, we're going to look at a number of sites, and I think some of you will be surprised not only at the type of sites that use WordPress, but some of the tools that they use to create WordPress. So that's what we'll be doing. Again, we'll start in about 3 or 4 minutes. Whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube, welcome. This is the live broadcast here at WP Studio. Hopefully everybody is seeing the slide. Does anyone actually use WordPress and hearing my voice? As long as those things are true, you should have everything set at your end. So welcome to all the first-time visitors. Welcome to the members of WP Studio who are joining us. And I hope we'll have a little bit of fun today diving into people who use WordPress. Plus, I got some treats today. I have found buried in the code of a number of websites some really funny things. No, I'm not talking about comments. I'm talking about the choice of what some developers use. So, good afternoon, Barbara. Awesome that you can see and hear. Again, we're about 2 or 3 minutes to go. Now, just so everybody is clear, in today's webinar, I'm not going to be going through all the different WordPress agency sites that run on WordPress because, they should be running on WordPress. So there's a lot of blogs out there that say, hey, look at all these websites that run on WordPress. And then they go and list all sorts of the theme companies, the plugin companies, other agencies that build WordPress sites. Of course, they're going to be running WordPress sites. What we're going to be looking at is some much larger sites that actually run WordPress. And we're going to also dig into some of their source code so that you can see, and I'll teach you guys how to know, because with a lot of the new caching plugins and distributed networking type of things, it sometimes is not as easy to tell if something runs WordPress. So welcome everybody who's popping in. Welcome Felix, George. We'll start right at the top of the hour. There's about less than 2 minutes to go. There might be like a 30-second or so delay between where I am in broadcasting live and where you are listening, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. If you are hearing other sounds in the background, I'm actually broadcasting out of my wife's voice studio right now, and so she's just finishing up a lesson. So if all of a sudden you hear musical theater in the background, don't worry, I don't monetize this YouTube channel, so we don't have to worry about getting demonetized. So we'll just let it all go. Morning, Paul. Morning, John. Actually, afternoon for some of you. All right, just a few seconds to go. We're only going to spend like 2 or 3 minutes looking at 1 or 2 slides just to set the stage for what we're going to do today, and then we're going to just dive into actual WordPress websites. All right, it just turned 1 o'clock here. I am going to hit several of the recording items, and we are going to get started. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to another live event here at WP Studio. Today, as I said in the pre-show, we are going to attempt to solve or answer the question, Does anybody actually use WordPress? Now, why would I even title that? Partly because I'm sure some of you have probably seen stats like this. 60% of the top 100 fastest growing companies use WordPress, or over 40% of all websites use WordPress. Well, those stats might be true, but my goodness, that would mean every website I come across should be WordPress, and it doesn't seem like that. So basically, I have to ask a question. Is there a reason large corporations, businesses choose WordPress? Well, I would actually say, yes, there are some reasons. I believe WordPress is expandable, flexible, scalable, and affordable. Affordable, it's free, the source code, and then you can build whatever you want on it. It's expandable with all the hooks and plugins and capabilities and filters. It is flexible. You can make it do basically anything. And I'm going to show you a number of websites that make WordPress do different things. And scalable, you can go to some of the largest websites in the world and find that they're running WordPress. And WordPress, yes, with some plugins, but by default, how themes pull title content and regular content, it's SEO friendly. It supports multi-site. It has a full REST API and a command line interface. So developers can use it, yet the backend can be made to be more user-friendly. And if you want to know more about that, over at WP Studio, I do teach a whole bunch of courses on how to customize the backend of WordPress for delivery for clients. So that's one of the things. I'll just put that there. And then built into WordPress is easy roles. Now, I can sit here and do slides all day, but you probably are here for me to show you the proof. So let us dive in, and I'm going to be flipping back and forth between a bunch of screens because we're going to not only take a look at sites that actually use WordPress, but we'll dive into some of the source code so that I can show you how you can find not only what runs the site, what tools they use on the site, but also how I can actually figure out how a certain website is building a certain functionality on the website simply by looking at some of the source code. All right. So what we're going to do here is I am going to, let me flop this over and hide that. All right. So let's start big right out of the gate. The White House here in the United States is run by WordPress. Now, as a side note, back in the maybe 8-10 years ago, the White House was run by Drupal. Now, if you jump into taking a look at your source code, best way to see it is just open up the head area and start to scroll down, and all of a sudden, you'll start to see things like WP content themes. Where are their assets being loaded from? That's right. This is all running on WordPress. So, pretty impressive that you've got a site that is 100% accessibility rated. And why is that part of the US government? It requires their websites to be accessible. And so therefore it passes all the accessibility standards. And it's good to know that WordPress is there. So part of what I want to also spend today's live webinar doing is give you all answers when a client says to you, I want X, Y, and Z, and I want to make sure that whatever we are building or whatever you're building will work. So when you have a client who says accessibility is important, and I want to make sure that not only are we future-proof, but we are going to be accessible, you can point out that the White House is run by WordPress, and therefore it passes all accessibility standards. So it's a nice thing to do. Now, there's another site that runs in WordPress, and I'm going to show you something really funny. Okay, You would think a technology website like jQuery that has been around for a long time, and sure, jQuery for many years was bundled and still is bundled with WordPress. You would think, hey, there's a lot of understanding of what WordPress does. But guess what? Let's take a look at the source code. And absolutely, it uses WordPress, where I can see that, oh, look, there's the WP content, the themes. But let's keep scrolling down, and we're like, oh, interesting. They're forced loading jQuery 1. Current versions of WordPress would actually have difficulty running, and you probably have all been down this road when you tried updating to WordPress 5 or 5.6, and it broke all this old jQuery. So I'm thinking, well, how is jQuery 1.1 still running? Oh, they have not updated their website for years. jQuery is running WordPress 4.5.2. Can I just say that? Now, this would be perfectly fine running 4.5, but they have not updated all sorts of additional code samples. Now, what is that? What do I mean by that? Not code samples, code updates that have been rolled back to prior versions of WordPress. If you didn't know this, this is just a side rabbit trail we're going to go on. And I didn't plan to do this until I was digging around the jQuery website source code, and I was like, oh my goodness. If you go to WordPress.org and you click Get WordPress in the top right, scroll all the way down, and you will find an All Releases. This is important, especially if you are building a site for a client where there's very specific things that maybe you can't upgrade to the latest version of WordPress because either a plugin or a tool broke for the next version, so you need to stay back in an older version of WordPress. That's okay to do if you update the releases. So for example, right now, we are here in WordPress 5.8, which was released on July 20th. Now, 5.7.2 was the release prior, and it was released on May 12th. Inside this release, 5.7.2, there were security updates to all prior versions of WordPress. Why? Because look, May 12th, this branch was updated. May 12th, this branch was updated. May 12th, this branch was updated. So if we were to go look at the jQuery site and go all the way back down to, what was it at? 4.5, go all the way down to 4.5 here, guess what? They also got that update that happened 5.7.2, but it is 4.5.24. So if we go down to where they last updated their site here, they are still under the May 6, 2016 version of WordPress. So there are possible vulnerabilities in there. There's other issues. There are 22 versions of WordPress out of date. So you can find some interesting things about WordPress sites or large corporations, large businesses that are running WordPress site by digging into the source code. All right. So jQuery definitely was one that was interesting. And I always find it interesting seeing tech companies use WordPress. So Plesk is a server management. It's kind of like a cPanel variation. You jump in the source code and immediately, and I didn't even have to go look at the source code. Why? I'm looking at the divs. Elementor. Oh, look, the Plesk website is running Elementor. So here's an answer to some of your questions. Should a large corporation use page builders? Is it possible that you can optimize a page builder to handle large bits of traffic and large corporate sites? This just proves that absolutely. Not only can we handle Elementor we can dig in and we can see that, let me keep going down because you're looking for what does it include in terms of like the links. Um, yeah, it's loading in Elementor. It's like even turning on OEmbed capabilities. It is allowing WP emoji to run. Now, sure, there might be some ways that you could clean up this code. Maybe you don't need emojis running on a corporate website, but it's interesting to see. All right, one of the other interesting things I always kept finding when I was digging into sites, here's the National Archives from the UK government. And at first, it doesn't really look like a WordPress site. So you start digging in and looking a little bit. Another thing that, without looking at the header area, you can immediately tell that something is a WordPress site by looking at the body class. We got a whole webinar on customizing the body class at WP Studio. But with this, if I'm looking at anything that says something like page template, page home, page ID, something, that's going to tell me there's a very good chance this is a WordPress site. So I dive in here, and what's interesting is here, hey, they're using the Yoast SEO plugin. So throughout today's little excursion through a bunch of sites that run WordPress, I'll be highlighting a number of plugins that are being used on large sites so that you, if a client says, hey, I need SEO, or can you do something? You can feel confident in saying, hey, I want to use the SEO framework or Yoast SEO or whatever SEO plugin you want, because we can probably find some fairly large WordPress websites that use that specific type of SEO plugin. All right. Now, most people think of WordPress sites as kind of an Apache, PHP, MySQL. But one of the server environments, Nginx, is also running WordPress. So I love it when I find tech companies who have a specific type of tech where they wouldn't have to run WordPress, but it just makes it easier for them to manage their site, manage WordPress. So again, when we look at the source code, here's the example I used just before. We have things like page ID 2, page homeplate, homepage, or page template. All of these are indications of WordPress. The other thing to do is because of caching plugins, because of distributed server environments, sometimes you won't really see where the theme is coming from, or there may be some cached non-directory related files. But there's a very good chance you'll probably find uploads, especially because if they're using tools like the customizer adds the fav icons in WordPress sites directly from the WP Contents Uploads folder. So what a perfect way to, without digging in too far, I can see that Nginx is running WordPress. I don't even have to dig any further because, hey, it's running WP Content Uploads. But I can dig in here and see, oh, look, they really are using the block library. They're not turning off the new Gutenberg block editor. They're using that. And I can find which versions of jQuery they're still using. Looks like they're still having to use the jQuery migrate so that the old version of jQuery is accessible. Now, it can even be extremely large sites that you'd be thinking, well, why would Sony Music be using WordPress for their sonymusic.com? Well, it's easy to see. Again, here's the body class with home, blog, full width, custom background. And all of a sudden, when you start saying, hey, full width, custom background, empty, maybe there's other things in here that we could find, like this. Hey, they're using W3 Total Cache. And I'm going to show you another website that uses WP Super Cache. So these are all plugins that are accessible to you. So this is one of these things that I like about WordPress is when I'm looking at other sites that have been built by, it could be large corporations or small freelancers who are building these sites. They're using tools that you have access to. You may not have a massive budget of a large corporation that builds complex websites for clients, for large companies like Sony Music. But they're not using some inaccessible tool to do caching on the website or a really expensive tool that only the wealthy can afford. They're using W3 Total Cache for this. And it's one of those neat little things that you can find by digging in the source code. All right. Now, this next one is something I want to highlight because as we look at BBC America, the website could be anything. And even if we dig into the inspector and we start looking, we're not really given any indication from the body tag. And even if we take a look at a few of the divs and the components and the scripts, notice how this says it's deferring from a public assets vendor, or it's trying to load the scripts from a fully minified script file. So you might be thinking, oh, well, that's not WordPress. And even if we dive into the header and we start looking here, it's like, you know what? It's like trying to pre-connect all these specific links to different video files and some different URLs, and everything is linking to this directory that doesn't have anything to do with WP content or WP upload or any of those uploads folders that you would normally see in a WordPress website. But there's always a way to, in the source code, just do a search, just type WP. Let me do viewport here. I'll just zoom. There we go. All of a sudden, we will find an image, WP content uploads. So this now tells me that even though BBC America is running behind like a CDN, behind some massive caching environments, maybe distributed servers on different things, the images are still being served from a WP Contents Uploads folder. And that tells me this is WordPress. You're not going to run an HTML website or a Node.js or some JavaScript environment or some other content management system and then serve things from WordPress. That's probably not what is happening. There could also be a headless WordPress site where you're using the REST API, and therefore we wouldn't be using the traditional WordPress themes and the hierarchy and the templates, things like that, but we would still be pulling everything from a WordPress database. So simply searching for WP and in the source code will give you an idea of who is running or the code behind the site. All right, so we have actually covered quite a few interesting sites and even the New York Times. So the New York Times website, dive in, and we can see, oh, look, here's that home page template, page ID, something. Go through this whole thing, and sure enough, the New York Times is running through a WP includes. See, that's going to tell you that, hey, we are pulling style sheets from WordPress. And if we go through this whole thing, and I think it was down at the bottom, where was it? I think let me find this. I think it was SEO. Yeah, the SEO Framework. It's another SEO plugin. So the New York Times is using the SEO Framework. Just so you know, I mean, that's a free plugin over here that you can just grab from the WordPress repository. And that's the same SEO plugin that the New York Times uses. Well, what about building a site? How about this? I'm sure people have never heard of the Walt Disney Company. And you go through here and you dive in here and say, all right, this looks like WordPress. It is. And the other thing to look at is, where are assets being drawn from? Are they being drawn from certain CSS files? Is the JavaScript and whatever script file being added from something? And one of the things I found with the Walt Disney Company site, I think if I go all the way down here and we start looking at, I think it was the where was it? Where's my theme? Hold on. Let me just search for theme so I can jump to the spot. Here we are. So when we look at the theme and where was it? Trying to pull this one up because let's find the other one. Iframe. Let me find it a different way. There we are. Underscore JavaScript. So if I'm looking through here, WP includes underscore min. Anybody know where that's coming from? Well, it's partly coming from here. How to create your own theme in Word, the underscore. And this tells me that, you know what, they're starting with a default WordPress site. Now, Vivendi. This is a large international media arts site, and I found a very interesting one in here. When I dug in this here, and I went into the header area, not only did I find JM Twitter cards, which is a free plugin in WordPress you can get, not only is SEO Yoast here, I looked up here and say, oh, look, Auto Optimize. That is a free plugin that you can use in WordPress. I've done webinars on this. Great plugin. So this plugin is being used by a multinational corporation to optimize their website. And it's something that you can use right now. You don't have to go hire some super optimization company. Why? Because they're using the tools that you can use right now. So, and you can find all these things just by digging a little bit into the source code of sites that you think might have WordPress. How about Toyota? The entire Brazilian Toyota website and everything that they're doing in Brazil is using WordPress. And I believe, let me see if I can pull it up here. Trying to find where my... Oh, no, there's another one that has WooCommerce. But I can go through here and find all the WP, here we are, content, themes. It's pulling its address here, pulling the CSS from WP Contents folder. Now, this one may not be as big as some of us would think, but some of you may actually have a Mod Pizza near you. There's a lot of locations of Mod Pizza. Very specifically, not very specifically, but there's a lot in California. And this is one of the things I wanted to show you. When I dig in here to the header section of Mod Pizza, I am looking through the libraries, and all of a sudden I see Gravity Forms. Hey, so a large company is using Gravity Forms, and if you dig further, the order forms and other aspects of their website for pizza sales is handled with Gravity Forms. And sure, I can go through and look at a whole bunch of other things that they do, but that was just a neat little thing that they use the autocomplete in this order form. And basically, it's entering your autocomplete in here, and Mod Pizza allows you to use gravity forms. All right, so let's take a look at some more tech companies. And this has been one that's been around for a while, and this is why I'm highlighting it. Techcrunch still runs WordPress. I look at my header. Sometimes, again, this is another one that has these CDNs that are already pre-caching everything. This is a VIP WordPress site. How do I know that? Is because the V0 or be like V1, V2, different servers that might be used for VIP WordPress, high-end WordPress sites that are hosted, and it's using .com. It's not using the .org. So I can see it's still there. So for the past 10 years or so, Techcrunch is run on WordPress. You know that they are hit up all the time from different content management systems and groups to say, hey, we want Techcrunch to now run on Joomla, Drupal, whatever the next and latest, greatest. They're still on WordPress, which says a lot that a tech company is sticking around with WordPress for a long time. Even educational institutions, the Harvard Gazette, fully running WordPress. Actually, we will come back to some of the educational ones. I'm going to fire through 2 or 3 other ones so that you know. The Variety, this is running WordPress. Dive in here. Again, this is another one of these cached ones that by quick looking at it, it may not look like WordPress and everything. Even the body class is slightly different, it's a little bit modified. But again, it's one of those ones that if you just search for WP, you will come up with all sorts of things like where the theme is being loaded from, the WP content themes. The Sun, UK newspaper or tabloid, depending on whatever you think. And it's okay. We're going to be safe because I have an ad blocker on and we're not going to get inundated. But we're going to come up with and take a look at the fact that the Sun is, again, large traffic, lots of stuff. And there's my uploads folder in the WP content. So I know this is running WordPress. And another tech company who's always looking at tech, 9to5 Mac, and basically all your 9to5 Google, all of these items, they're all running WordPress. All right, now let's jump over here because this is, if you live in the Washington, D.C. area, you know that the Smithsonian's are big museums, lots of different museums. And for years, every Smithsonian used the Drupal content management system. Part of that is because the digital agency that Matt Cutts came to run at the beginning of President Obama's administration, he really pushed a lot of the Drupal content management systems for federal government offices. And so for years, all the Smithsonians ran Drupal until our latest Smithsonian that came up, the National Museum of African Art, along with the African American Museum here in the United States, here in Washington, D.C. This one is very interesting. You know why? Not only is it now running on WordPress, but as we dig through here, some of you may be shocked at this. I come through here and I'm going to find a certain asset that is loaded. Contact Form 7. So, large organization. You don't have to have the latest and greatest form builder to build a site for a client. We have one of the museums here in DC having Contact Form 7. The other thing I found as I dug a little bit deeper and I started looking at, my eye triggered on this one. It's a style sheet for simple social icons. Now, for those of you who are familiar with StudioPress, you know, basically that is a plugin they have. And so I started digging a little bit further, and I found other Genesis related plugins having their assets loaded, which then is understandable that if we searched for Genesis, I should have searched for theme. Well, basically, it's running Genesis. We would pull this up. So all of a sudden, now here is a theme that you could go use. The Studio Press Genesis theme is being used to power the Smithsonian National Museum of African Art. And the last time I checked, I don't know if they even know this because it's not on one of their featured websites. And I would think having a high scale site like this would be a benefit. Now, let's talk about some of the, as I said, some of the educational ones. I love looking at these because these are organizations or universities where they have access to people who know a lot of code, understand code, can do some advanced things. Yet, University of Washington is run by WordPress. So for those of you who say, well, nobody uses WordPress, I'm going to show you a number of large educational institutions that are 100% run by WordPress. And we can easily see with this one, it is using WP Contents folder. And here's how we can see that, hey, it's using the Boundless theme. So if I jump on over here, open this as a new team, it is using the Boundless theme. They have made their own parent theme, and they have a child theme. Why this is beneficial or to our understanding or investigation, most educational institutions who make their own parent theme is because each one of their subdivisions are probably going to use a child theme off of the parent theme. So it's one of the neat things to dig around in. And this one is about ready to blow your mind. I'm sure most people, at least here on the East Coast, you know about Georgia State University. It's down there in Atlanta. Georgia State, multiple campuses, does all sorts of stuff. Let's dive in, and you're about ready to see that they are really taking the concept of open source and using all they can do. Because as I dig through the source code and we look at items and we look and see what type of not only style sheets, but JavaScript files and assets that are being loaded, oh, look, it's using formidable forms. And then we go over here and there's a Revolution slider. And we keep going down and all of a sudden, WooCommerce, hey, they're loading WooCommerce, which means there's a very good chance that most of the purchasing and other items might initially start with WooCommerce. And if I keep digging in, I'm wondering, well, how do they build their custom post types? Oh, they're using Toolset. So just because a large organization may have the skills to just code their site themselves, or the company they've hired can code the site, this is proof here. Hey, they're using tools that are available to you. In the same manner, I already showed you things. Here's Lafayette College. And they, if you go to the source code, you're going to see that everything has been cached by, where'd it go? Let's do super. Where's the WP super cache? Should be down at the bottom. Normally that's, nope, that's, let's do this. Let's go open, close this. Super cache. Where'd it go? All right, earlier today, and maybe they're actually working on something, but Lafayette College actually had one of those tags. Hey, this is a page that's been cached. So they may have just cleared their cache and we weren't getting the cache, or maybe they're doing something. But earlier today, it wasn't there. And, even other schools that do lots of interactions, lots of video work, lots of things, this Wheaton College in Massachusetts running WordPress. Well, how about businesses that actually want to sell things and make money and do stuff outside? Ripley's, believe it or not only does it run WordPress, but if you jump in here, you're going to see that it also runs WooCommerce. So their shop is WooCommerce. If we dig into it, they're using formidable forms. Again, diving into the assets of what is being loaded. Another large company that constantly is selling Airstream trailers. This site, everything about it is running WordPress. Now, my next one is going to blow your minds. Not because of who it is, but because of the tools they use. Here's the Dallas Mavericks. This is the website, Mark Cuban's team that he owns. The Dallas Mavericks website is run by WordPress and powered by WordPress, but you're about ready to go and shake your head and say, oh, please, what in the world? Now, I first looked into this, and I was looking at this code, and I was like, okay, there's something slightly strange with some of how the code is being generated and being created. Sure, okay, he's got the Yoast SEO plugin. We dive in, and let's take a look at some of the assets that are being loaded. And where's my thing to make you go, what? Powered by WP Bakery Page Builder. That's right. And powered by Slider Revolution. These are two plugins that basically are all about putting shortcodes all over your website. Yet it's a massive global brand, the Dallas Mavericks. But they're using WP Bakery Page Builder. So I say this is just because you feel that, hey, I'm using this tool, maybe it's not as high-end tool as other people are using. There's large corporations that are using tools to build their websites that most developers would say, hey, you need to use something more powerful. But they're doing it. Now, we could also do Riverdance. That was another website that is fully running on WordPress. Now, talking about how to use tools and things that we would use, the Creative Commons website not only is using WordPress, but they're using other things that are free, like, hey, let's take advantage of Jetpack. So there, Creative Commons, rather than loading up a bunch of other plugins, they're using Jetpack to handle a number of things. And the theme that they are using, does everybody see that? They're using the 2016 theme. So if somebody out there in the WordPress world or on some WordPress forum says, hey, you've got to use this theme over here, you could also just say, hey, Creative Commons is using the 2016 theme. Does everybody remember what the 2016? Let me just pull this up. This is the 2016 theme. Remember that? That's what they built it with it. So think about themes as a starting place. It doesn't have to be your ending place. Another way to approach things is, and you can learn how other people develop their sites or launch their sites. I'm highlighting the Economic Policy Institute that runs WordPress, because one of the things they have done is in the header area, you will find lots of MU plugins. Look at how any of their plugins that they're using, where they're adding that epi charts and other things, they're adding things through the MU plugins. And that means either this Economic Policy Institute is using multi-site, or they are choosing to put some of their plugins in the MU plugin directory and thereby eliminate the whole plugin directory section inside a WordPress admin area so nobody can accidentally deactivate a plugin or that might have access. So there's some cool things. If you don't know anything about the MU, or if this is the first time you're hearing about MU plugins, must-use, multi-use plugins, definitely let me know in the chats, and maybe we can do another live webinar on MU plugins. I know we've done a bunch of the training in some of the past WordPress developer camps or courses that I've taught. All right, there's a few more here. I'm going to highlight a bunch of these, not really to go into the source code, but to showcase that you can get some really good looking WordPress websites that actually do and are nice and interactive. So that's the Invisible Children nonprofit. You also have the Archive National Foundation, all running WordPress. Some of them look fairly standard, but most of the sites that I am sharing with you have high traffic. The TED blog. So they may have a different site for the actual front end of the TED Talk, but their blog, in which they operate daily or have a lot of traffic from, is the TED blog, and that runs. Now, this one is another one. The same way the Dallas Mavericks website was kind of weird seeing WP Bakery being used as their page builder. How many of you would think Evernote, hey, there's a team that really understands technology? So let's go take a look at Evernote. And it's always fun to look and see what type of themes are being used by different sites. So what I'm looking for is the WP Content Themes folder. And all of a sudden, I was like, Mocha, that sounds familiar. Let's take a look at this. Oh, guess what? It's Theme Forest. So Evernote basically, or the developer basically went to Theme Forest, bought a $59 theme, and then launched their Evernote blog using a theme that they bought off of Theme Forest. So anything is possible. But this is also showing how what's accessible to large corporations like Evernote is accessible to you. How about Star Wars? Yep, Star Wars News, the news site. Now, this is interesting because their actual website, this one, doesn't run WordPress. But if you jump on over to the blog, this runs websites. So they're basically running two websites. I show this to say that, you know what, sometimes when you are going to do a web dev project or you're pitching an idea to a client, maybe they already have a really powerful website that they're using, yet they're not getting ongoing traffic. And maybe they're coming to you to say, how can we increase traffic? This is one of the ways you could do it, is pitch an idea of, let's create a news site that you all have the capability of updating yourself. Why not just take a theme, skin the theme so it looks just like the regular website, and then now you're running it under a subdirectory of their website. Just you're loading WordPress and installing WordPress under that subdirectory. Just one of the things to think about. And Spotify also chose for their news, this is using WordPress. Now, the last few are kind of fun. They're more popular things. But Tim Ferriss, a guy who has plenty of money with all of his stuff, and this is not a promotion, but he runs a pretty great podcast. So if you ever want to learn some interesting tidbits, or you're driving, you want some stuff, look up Tim Ferriss's his podcast. But this whole site runs WordPress. Well, what about musicians? Katy Perry, this whole site runs WordPress. Gets even better. Oh, are you serious? Awesome. I was going to show you Snoop Dogg. Snoop Dogg's website just broke. Let's try again. No, he's still down. Okay. The best part about it is Snoop Dogg, the website, is running not only WordPress, but it's using Elementor to build the whole site. It's basically using default Elementor templates, pulling those in, editing those templates, and the Snoop Dogg website. I hope it comes back. It looks like we might have a chance as I close out some of these tabs. All right, I'll keep going. We'll come back to Snoop Dogg. But Sylvester Stallone, this is running WordPress. And what some people consider the techiest of, how do I say it? The techiest of actors, Will Wheaton. Will has some problems. Not because he runs WordPress, because Will Wheaton still doesn't update, is still not using an HTTPS. So even big tech, and again, he doesn't have anybody else running this. Basically, he built his own site. But this is also running WordPress. Easy to see. Jump in the inspector. It's running with WooCommerce there. It's jump into the head tag. You can see, yes, everything is being cached, but I can go through here and find the Woo Gutenberg plugins being added. The WooCommerce is running. Here's the themes being used in the WP Contents folder. All that's work. All right, let's check one more time on Snoop Dogg. All right, this is what happens when you do a live event. We are unable to find everything we need. So I think we were able to show the proof. That's right. We were able to run through and prove these stats. Sure, we've got some of the biggest companies using WordPress. We've gone through all sorts of things. And yes, there were lots of reasons to use it. And hopefully, just taking a look at sites that use WordPress, diving into the source code, looking at some of the options. Some of the largest sites in the world are using things like Elementor, MU plugins, Jetpack, Slider Revolution, WooCommerce, Formidable Forms, the Genesis theme, SEO frameworks, Auto-Optimize or Auto-Optimize. It's one of the hardest words to say when they made up a word. And we even saw very large websites that are completely out of date. And I hopefully showed you how to fix that. But at the end of the day, I believe we've now answered our question. Does anybody actually use or anyone actually use WordPress? And that answer is yes. Well, if this trip down the worldwide web of WordPress websites was fun, you enjoyed kind of a little lower key look at how not only to identify WordPress sites, but to see tools that they use to build their sites. You enjoyed that. Definitely put a like down there if you're on YouTube, or put a comment if you're on Facebook. I hope you had a fun day today. I enjoyed pulling all this stuff up. And maybe I should just call up Snoop and let him know that his site is down, because, he's just right there on my speed dial. Hope you guys have a great rest of a Thursday. And for the members of WP Studio, I'll be seeing you in the forums. It's a few questions for a number of you in the forums. And if you're interested in learning more about all the different trainings and tools we do at WP Studio, check it out, WPstudio.com. And I hope you guys have a great rest of the day. Thanks for all the great comments, and enjoy your Thursday.